Your thoughts shape your energy, your emotions, and even the reality you experience. What is shifting your mindset could shift everything. Welcome to day 4 of 14 days of loving you. Today, we're exploring the power of positive thinking and how rewiring your mind can transform your energy. So let's dive in. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Nicole Love, also known as Nic. Welcome to day 4 of 14 days of loving you. Today's focus is embracing the power of positive thoughts. So today we're going to be focusing on the connection between your thoughts and energy. And so let's start here. Have you ever noticed how your mood shifts when you start thinking positively versus when you're stuck in self-doubt, right? You notice your mood does shift. From a scientific perspective, our thoughts create neural pathways in the brain. And each time we think a certain way, our brain strengthens that pathway. And it does that in order to make it easier to default to that thought pattern in the future. So this is what is called neuroplasticity. I know this is everywhere. I see it everywhere. And they have done a lot of research and they're understanding what neuroplasticity is and the power of our brain. And so neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire itself based on repeated experiences and thoughts. With that awareness of neuroplasticity and the brain's capability to rewire itself through repeated experience and thoughts, that's where people have had this opening and this revelation and this realization of the power of the brain and the power of our thoughts. So science has proven that. There's the science of it is there. It's not just your brain that's affected. Think about the question that I asked. When I asked, have you ever noticed your mood shift when you start thinking positively versus when you're stuck in a sense of self-doubt, doubting yourself? Your thoughts also trigger this biochemical response, or biochemical responses, because it's more than one in your body. So when you think negatively, your body releases what's called cortisol. And cortisol is the stress hormone. And this can leave you feeling drained and anxious. That's why when I asked that question, think back of how your mood shifted when you were thinking something positively versus in that state of self-doubt. There was a biochemical response that was triggered that shifted your mood. So based on your thoughts, your energy is going to be influenced. And then your brain is going to create these default thought patterns to be able to access in the future in order to be able to move through things really, really quickly. That's the brain's purpose. The brain wants to process information as quickly as possible, as minimally as in terms of time it takes in order to do so. That's how I summarize it. I'm sure there's a more eloquent way of stating that. So we talked about that our brain is affected through these biochemical responses that are triggered. So we talked about when you think something negatively, your body releases cortisol, and that's that stress hormone. And so you have these feelings of feeling overwhelmed or drained or anxious. On the flip side of that, positive thoughts, they boost dopamine or serotonin. And this helps to regulate your mood and energy and your overall well-being in that you feel this surge of energy and you just feel so lighter and upbeat and a greater sense of happiness within your life and thus energetically. So our thoughts shape our energy. They just do. I shared a little bit of it. I'm going to go a little bit more in detail because I do think it's important to kind of dig into the science of it a little bit more. But before we do, I want to share a personal experience that I feel like a lot of people can relate to. I have caught myself in like this loop of self-doubt, especially when starting something new. And I would think, like, what if it doesn't work out? Or I don't know enough yet. That would be probably the one that would come forth really quickly. I don't know enough yet. And because I was in that loop of self doubt in my thinking, that energy showed up in how I carried myself, how I showed up with starting something new. I would doubt things and I would think that it never was going to work out, or like, what's the point of doing this? And because that energy would show up in the way that I carried myself, it also impacted, like I said, like how I spoke. And this is the most important part that I think a lot of people don't realize is it showed up in how others responded to me. That's a big one. Now that I've gotten to a place of having a practice of checking in with myself, being more mindful, being more aware of my emotions and my thoughts day to day, I'm able to catch myself. And so I started to shift my thoughts. It was like, oh, I don't know enough yet. Well, then I started to tell myself, yes, and I am learning and I am capable. Something that I've started to say yes and, because two things can be the same at the same time. And I think it's a really beautiful way to meet yourself where you are without beating yourself up, of like, again, getting in that loop of self-doubt, but meeting yourself where you are. Like, yes, I don't know enough yet. Yes, and I am learning and I am capable. And eventually you start to realize and appreciate how your energy changes in that I am learning and I am capable. You start to feel lighter. It boosts your confidence and you're more open to opportunities and things start to flow better. So that's the power of how our thoughts shape our energy. That's the power of how our thoughts shape our energy, and also how what we think we put out into the world and we receive that back. The science behind it is what's called the reticular activating system. Let's try that again. The reticular activating system, abbreviated RAS. And this is part of the brain, of our brain, that filters information based on what we focus on. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at this, your RAS will seek out evidence to confirm that belief. Remember how I shared how I would have these thoughts of I don't know enough, and people would respond to me in that way, and kind of doubting, and then versus when I like, yes, and I am learning and I'm capable, my energy changed. I was more open to opportunities and people showed up in greater support. When you have this awareness of how the brain functions, I think everyone should learn how the brain functions. And when you start to understand that the brain has a negativity bias, it's just how it's set up to protect us, to keep us safe. And that's why it's so important to understand how something so powerful that we use all the time works. So we're working smarter and more aligned energetically. And so understanding that we have this reticular activating system, RAS, that is going to seek out evidence to confirm whatever we believe. So with that understanding, with that new knowledge, how can you be aware of the thoughts that you have and shift your mindset to I am improving, so your brain starts to notice proof of your progress instead? It's going to seek out how you're improving because that is what you are seeking evidence to confirm that belief. There's also the heart brain connection. There's Heart Math Institute. Such a great resource. I'll put it down in the description below, and I'm just gonna briefly speak on this. I am not an expert when it comes to heart math, but the Heart Math Institute, it shows that positive thoughts create what's called coherent heart rhythms, and it leads to reduced stress and increased clarity. And while those negative thoughts can create rhythms that disrupt energy flow. So, in what they have done, because they have studied this, they have studied it, and they have proven the power of thoughts, the power of your thoughts and how they influence your energy. When you look at emotion, the word emotion, it's energy in motion. So, what is your emotion? How do you feel? And what is the vibration and the frequency of that emotion? Because the science says in those two different modalities, those methods, and such, that it's a prevalent reality. It's real, it's true, it does exist. So I'm not talking at you here. I want to share an exercise that I like to think of as a thought awareness check-in. So let's pause for a moment, and I want to offer you the opportunity to ask yourself these things. Just reflect on these. So one question would be, what is one thought I've been repeating to myself today? What's that one thought that you've been repeating to yourself today? What is it? Now that you have the awareness of what is that one thought, how does it feel energetically? Does it make you feel lighter? Is it lifting you up? Is it bringing you down? Does it make you feel heavier? And if it is bringing you down, if it's negative, ask yourself, is this thought absolutely true? Is this true? And challenge it gently. Challenge it gently. And how can you get to that level of awareness and make the adjustments that will support your brain's RAS system in a way that will provide the proof of your progress? Instead, if you have identified that you have this thought that's it's not absolutely true. Yes, and that I was speaking of. Doing this with yourself frequently, it can be game changer. This is what mindfulness in practice looks like. Small little baby step. Just being aware of your thoughts and ask yourself, how does that thought make me feel? And ask yourself, is this thought absolutely true? And taking it back to the example of what I was saying, in my example of how I don't know enough yet, right? You're starting something new. Well, that's not absolutely true. Don't know enough yet. Yes, and I am learning, and I am capable of learning. So maybe right now you're in this process of learning and you don't have a level of understanding, but you can get there. So that thought is not absolutely true, because you can learn and begin to know more than you did before. Doing this with yourself, being aware of your thoughts, understanding how you can empower your brain to rewire those connections. I mean, it's such a powerful thing to to feel and to know that you have the capacity to strengthen those pathways and you can rewire your brain to think differently. People do it all the time, all the time. It can be done. I've done it with myself in such a powerful way. And you have done it with yourself in a way like you've done it already. You literally have already done that. So it's just being mindful of catching yourself. What are your thoughts? And asking yourself, okay, how do those thoughts feel? What's the energy around those? And become empowered in making the energetic adjustments accordingly. I really wanted to remind people of the power, the innate power that we have within ourselves and the capacity we have to change our reality so much so. I think we're in a time where that is going to be one of the most supportive, healing, and calming practices, awareness and understanding more than ever. And it's going to set us up, it's going to set you up for the future moving forward. You take your power back because you realize that you have so much power than I think a lot of people realize. Your thoughts hold immense power, and by shifting them, you shift your energy and you shift your life. And the science, it confirms that the brain is rewirable. And that means every time you choose a positive aligned thought, you are literally reshaping your mind and your energy field. So be mindful today. Whenever you catch a limiting thought, pause, challenge it, and choose a new one. And the thing that I always say, the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Consistency is key. Take it day by day, moment by moment, and meet yourself where you are. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 5 of 14 days of loving you. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up and share it. Share it to those that have a brain. And thank you so much. Bye.